Sometimes I hear feeling in touch with fear. Freedom we all hold dear now is at stake. Humble your heart to God, save from the chastening wrong. Seek the way, pilgrims try, Christians away. My Jesus is coming soon.
I'm proud you're joining us today because we've got a program you're going to enjoy. You're going to learn some things today. We're going to help you have a better understanding of what goes on in Nashville, Tennessee. At least we're going to try to, because our guest is a special guest. It's the juvenile judge, Judge Sophia Crawford. Judge, glad to have you here.
Thank you, Lytle. Glad to be here.
You were appointed by the council to be a judge, and now you're running for a judge. You want to be judge.
That's correct. I've been in the
like it,
position.
don't you?
I love it. Been there 13 months and was a magistrate for about 10 years before that. And
now, for all of us that's in the nowhere world that I live in, I couldn't tell the difference in a magistrate and a judge. So you were really sitting on cases as a magistrate, right?
Absolutely. It's the same powers. Basically, as a magistrate, you have the same powers as the juvenile judge. The only difference is basically in the type of cases I hear. As the juvenile court judge, I'm the appellate judge to all of the magistrates. I'm sitting in the elected position, even though I was appointed to it. The only cases that I hear that the magistrates don't have jurisdiction to hear are judicial bypasses.
And what does that mean?
That is, if a youth comes before the court and wants to have an abortion and doesn't want to go to their parent to seek consent, they can get a judicial bypass.
And come before you.
Right.
And you would either give permission or deny permission,
Right.
or whatever it would be.
And really, it's not giving or denying permission for the abortion itself. The only decision I make is whether or not their decision is an informed and educated decision.
Okay.
And I come to that conclusion by a series of questions that are asked.
Now, I believe I heard from somebody, because several of the magistrates have been here. Callaway's been here, and you've been here when you was a magistrate. I think you were
That's
here.
correct.
Betty was judge. But I believe that if a person goes before a magistrate, if I'm right or wrong on this, you'll straighten me out. If they go before a magistrate and they don't like the decision, they can roll it, they can get before the judge.
That's exactly right.
And then
And then if they don't like mine, they can take it on up to the circuit court, Judge Phil Smith or Philip Robinson, or Court of Appeals, depending on what type of case it is.
that would be over into adult court?
Yes.
It is adult court, because you work in juvenile.
Right.
And you're running to be a judge. Now, the judge is the chief cook and bottle washer of all of juvenile court.
Absolutely. It's a real unique judgeship, Lytle, in that with this particular judgeship, there's administrative responsibilities that go along with it. Not saying my colleagues across the river.
Which is big.
Right. Managing 116 employees, a juvenile detention center, and a $13 million budget, in addition to sitting and hearing about 30 to 40 hours worth of trial and cases a week.
How do you spend time with your family?
Basically, my family comes to me recently. When I'm involved in community events, like yesterday we participated in the Shop with the Cop program when my case came off the docket, and my family came to me and worked the program with me. They're learning what community service is all about, which is a good thing.
It's a good thing. But you are a busy person. You've got good people around you.
Wonderful people. And what I do is if I have a trial that's continued or is settled, I'll usually call my administrator or my chief probation officer and say, let's get out in the field. Because we have 30-something outposted probation officers that are housed all over the city, and I want to make sure that they're taken care of. I want to make sure I know where they are and they know where I am and that they know I'm available for them too.
Now, are they in the housing projects?
They are.
They are.
All over Nashville.
And so that takes time
It does take time.
to go
But
visit.
I love it.
You love it.
I love it.
Why do you want to be judge? That's a fair question.
Well, because I think I have demonstrated the ability and the leadership to be a judge. I feel like I'm called to be a judge, if you will.
That's what I was getting to. You like the idea of being a judge.
I do. I do. But I truly feel like it's my calling.
You are in charge. You're helping other people. You see yourself as helping people, don't you?
Yes,
And helping families.
I do.
I'm big on the fact that God gave us the family first, the church to save it, and the government to protect it, but the family's God's small group.
That's it.
I said that fast, but I say it all the time.
It's true.
And if you can fix a family, you fix the problem.
That's it.
And
it's going to take the whole community, not just juvenile court.
it is. It's going to take the whole family. So many children I have learned, and I say this all the time on this show, but as early as 3 years old, stop taking in new information because they are surrounded by such a dysfunctional environment. And they're robbed of the joy of being a child. They're robbed of the innocence of being a child. And so they start making wrong decisions. And in visiting with Sheriff Darren Hall, he said the best figures he can get today is if we allow a child as a teenager to start getting involved in a life of crime, and they stay in that cycle and live their whole life in that cycle, each one of them is going to cost the American taxpayer $2 million.
Wow. Yeah, that's
So-
not surprising. And what our goal is their first contact with juvenile court. We only deal with those cases that come before us in some regards. In other regards, when we can, we're out in the community. For instance, like the FOP, Shop with a Cop yesterday, we have youth camps that our probation staff participates in. So we try to get out in the community and be involved to the extent we can when our caseloads are down enough for us to do so. But with the first contact with juvenile court, Lytle, what we're trying to do is to provide prevention and intervention resources for folks.
Right up front.
Right up front. Get them involved with whatever services they need so we can get back out of their life and they can continue on and get their youth on the right path.
So if a child is not going to school,
Right.
truant, is I think
Right.
what they call it, dropping out of school, got problems for some reason.
Right.
He's not dropping out of school because he's a good student and enjoys being there. Something's going on. And they come before you, you would start trying to figure out with this child, what is the problem that's keeping the child? Not just sit here and say guilty or innocent or public service or whatever, but you
Right.
try to get involved in their lives.
We are collaborating with the Metro Public School System as well as Metro Nashville Police Department. We have the Metro Student Attendance Center, which is out off near the East Precinct. Last year alone, about 2,500 youth that came before the Metro Student Attendance Center, about half of those were diverted without any court involvement.
Now, that Metro, what is that called?
It's called the Metro Student Attendance Center. It's the MSAC program, which our mayor started several years ago, and juvenile court's been working on that program for several years now. And it's become a very good diversion in terms of trying to get in there up front, find out what's going on with the family to keep the youth from going to school, put the services that are necessary into the family so that they can get back on the right track and start going to school.
Does that come out of your budget?
It does.
That comes out, I
does.
suppose, so you're
It
administrating that program
Yes.
basically is what it comes down to.
Yes.
I don't see how you do what you do. You've
Well,
got
thank
so
you.
much to do.
You do. Never a dull moment.
Never know. But one thing I want to stress, now we're taping this show in December and it may play in January, it may play again in July, it may play 100 years from now.
Right.
But you told me that the beds, what's the size of the court, of the beds at juvenile court?
In the detention center?
In
the
the
ju-
detention center.
we have a contract.
I think I asked what's the size of the bed.
That's okay.
How many
That's
beds?
okay.
It's a standard bed. It's
Right.
just so no. How many beds are in juvenile court
Right
to
now,
house prisoners?
well, there's up to 80-something beds, but every year, every time our contract is up for renewal, we include in the contract how many beds we think we'll use based on recent stats. Right now, we're contracted for 48 beds. This morning, we had 16 youth in detention. So there's been a real obvious decline in terms of our detention numbers, and I like to believe it's because of our prevention and intervention
Well,
programs that we
see,
have in place.
This is making sense, Judge. The population of Nashville is on the increase,
It is.
but you're incarcerating less and less, fewer juveniles. Something is working somewhere.
Well, our delinquency petitions are down. In other words, the delinquency cases that are coming to us are down. But
Which
our
means crime's down.
Right, but our neglect, dependency, and abuse petitions are on the increase, which is not good.
Neglect, and that's the breeding ground for, if that's the right phrase.
Right.
That's where it all festers and starts. And what was that? What'd you call that?
The neglect, dependency, and abuse petitions.
That is abuse is
Typically, petitions filed by the Department of Children's Services or private individuals.
against the parents.
Right, alleging
or one
dependency.
parent filing against another parent, or it's usually
Right.
DHS. Is it still?
DC
It used to be DHS. Something else now. What do you call
Department of
it?
Children's Services,
Yeah,
DCS.
DCS. Why'd they change that? It messed me up. They ought to
really
wait till I
don't know.
died and then. Okay, DCS. Their charges. Charges, wrong word. Their petitions are on the increase.
Just gradually, not drastically.
Which
just
really means they're doing
gradual
their job,
increase.
though. But
Yes.
if they do their job and they finding more and more situations they're filing. But if you can have early intervention is where
Right.
you're coming from, I think.
Exactly. And we just, at the last budget cycle, I requested and was approved to hire 3 probation staff on our parentage cases. Because what a lot of people don't understand is our juvenile court also adjudicates parentage petitions. That's children that are born out of wedlock to 2 parents. So if we can get in the family right after a child's born, get parentage established, get both parents actively involved in the life of the child, and have a probation officer assigned to each division of the court so that they can identify what services are needed in order to make sure the parent that's supposed to pay child support is paying child support and that both parents are actively involved in the family, then it's my hope that on those dockets we'll also be able to intervene early.
And that's ones that, so if I'm understanding this correctly, y'all just be with me, be patient with me, because this is good information. If DCS files a petition against a family, there is a mother and daddy in the family unless somebody's deceased. There is a mom and a daddy, and y'all are good about identifying that daddy.
We're trying to do that, yes, sir.
And helping him understand it's his responsibility to pay child support. I love that. I love that. I love that. And so,
in some situations, mom is paying support.
now,
If dad gets custody.
what is the? Well, let me cover this other thing.
Okay.
If y'all are out there and you identify these situations from DCS, and then you're intervening with both parents as an act of the court, which means you got authority.
Right.
And by doing that, you're able to help those parents, help that child solve their problem.
Exactly.
Do they see counselors? Or do you have people do counseling with parents? Or what is your involvement with a parent like that? Or is it so broad that you can't just define it?
It depends on if it's on the parentage dockets. The parentage dockets are totally different dockets than the dockets that handle dependency, neglect, and abuse dockets. They're
So
two
they would
totally
come to
different
court.
dockets. Right. The parents would come to court to try to establish parentage. Usually those are pro se petitions, or the State Department of Child Support Services will come and file those petitions. Department of Children's Services, however, files the dependency, neglect, and abuse petitions. But normally if a youth is committed to state custody based on neglect or abuse, not delinquency, neglect or abuse, then that's an automatic referral down to the parentage dockets to set support anytime a child's placed in state custody because of the parent's actions.
So if the child goes into state custody, then both parents may have to pay.
That's right.
May have to pay child support.
That's right.
How good are you at collecting that child support?
Well, for years, when I was covering that docket, we were first in the state for about 2 years. And then we dropped down to third, not taking all the credit for that. But I was eventually moved off of that docket. Someone else was put on that docket, and I was moved to the dependency, neglect, abuse, and delinquency dockets. And we fell down to third. And I can't tell you the reason why we fell down to third, but we were third in the state for collections. There could have been any number of reasons for it, though.
Would you be considered, if I am if I'm a deadbeat dad and not taking any responsibility for my children, and really just got an attitude, and I just got out of Darren Hall's jail, and I'm out here trying to run a little drugs on it, would I consider you a hard-nosed judge?
Probably. I hold parents accountable.
That's good. They should be held accountable.
I do.
shouldn't
And
they?
I hold kids accountable.
Accountability.
But having said that, Lytle, I try to treat every single case differently, fairly, equally, in terms of looking in the family, seeing what's going on in the family, seeing if there's something we can address, because our goal is treatment and rehabilitation on the delinquency side. Our goal is reunification with families whenever we can safely do so.
Now say that again.
Okay. If it's on the DCS, dependent, neglected, and abuse cases, the goal is to reunify that child with the family if the child's been removed from the family.
But if it's an abuse, you're not in a real big hurry about.
We want to make sure whatever led to that abuse is dealt with and taken care of, whether it be counseling, whether it be some kind of classes, whether it be addressing an underlying drug issue. We want the parent to work a permanency plan that we oversee to make sure that that child's going to be safe before we return the child.
See, my biggest fear is where there's abuse and there's drugs been involved in the history, because people in dealing with drugs can be clean, running good. And and I don't know, I'm not being critical here. They can be doing good and actually working and things going real good, and then all of a sudden they enter that same zone by the same store, by the same place where they first encountered that drug, and bingo, they're back into
They're
it.
very, right.
If they're not monitored, those children are back at risk. I did a show, it's a year ago, Dr. Lowry at Lipscomb on conflict resolution, and he was one of our guests. And boy, he's sharp. He understands the brain. And he made a statement that, boy, I wished every minister, pastor, preacher, wannabe preacher in Nashville had some time to listen to him. He said, and this is so important, he said, where there is not trust, there cannot be no resolution. You cannot put people back together and have complete unity or comfort or trust where there's not trust. You cannot have him forgive that wasn't forgiveness, it was resolution, I believe, conflict resolution. There can be no resolution where there's not trust. And when you deal with these abusive people that are abusive because of drugs,
Right.
y'all really have to monitor that
We do.
for a long time.
We do. We do.
And hold them accountable for that. And that's something that has to protect the children.
Exactly.
My biggest
And
fear
it
is
generally starts with like a trial home visit with case management services from the department involved once the child's on a trial home visit before there's an actual return of custody. And your hope is that they've learned where to access services and what led to the reason the child was removed. The conditions leading to removal don't exist anymore, in other words. So,
I've known cases where particular single mothers has got live-in boyfriends. In many cases, you got 2 or 3 children, two or three different fathers. The jealousy factor, it's not my kids, so you know that
Right.
really. And where the mothers, now this is called in DCS. This is not under your jurisdiction. This is DCS. They would call them, and the mother would say, "I need your help," and they would actually come in and do a case study in that home.
right.
And if it need to come over to court, then they would refer it over to the court, and y'all would get involved and take discipline on that dad. Or they would teach them. And I know some cases where that they have actually improved that home by teaching parenting skills
Right.
and monitoring at home and being close in that home. And when I see that, that just thrills me because I know that that child is on the road to be one of those $2 million price tags. But if you can let that child develop trust and hope and success and feel good about who they are and be successful, then they don't go into the prison system.
And what happens too, Lytle, anytime
We don't have but 10 minutes to
Oh,
just keep
okay.
going. We're doing all right. Just keep
anytime a
talking.
youth is committed to DCS custody for a non-delinquent because of the behavior of the parents, we have over 100 foster care review board members that are strictly volunteers that review those cases. And basically, if, for instance, the department's not doing what a foster care review board member believes they should, they'll what we call hot sheet it to one of the judges, the judge or one of the magistrates, and say, we believe that this parent's not made significant progress and this needs to be moved towards a termination from a rights tract.
So there
they'll
is
get
a safety gap
There
built
is.
in to keep her from going back in.
There is.
And you've got over 100 people
We've got
sitting
over
on it.
100 volunteers, just like we have court-appointed special advocates. We've got about 200 court-appointed special advocates at any given time, and the court could not operate without all of those volunteers.
Now,
So
where are
I
you
have to
getting
shout
this?
out for my volunteers.
Yeah, that's right. Where do you get these people?
From me going out and saying to people, step up and volunteer, folks. We'd love to have you.
And they
It's-
come to your court.
They do. We have lawyers. We have people from all walks of life volunteering to be CASAs and foster care review board members.
And I'm real interested in the foster care review
board.
Review board there, because that's protecting the children.
It is. Anytime a youth is committed within 60 days, the judge or magistrate that committed that youth will be hearing from the family about, a permanency plan. They develop a permanency plan. We have to actually review that permanency plan and approve that permanency plan and sign off on it. Once we do that, it's assigned to one of those review boards,
And they monitor.
and they monitor it. Yes,
And are these people that's doing this, you say a lot of them are lawyers?
they are. They are. We have them from all walks of life. I was trying to look for statistics. Here it is. Like for fiscal year 2012, there were over 1,500 reviews of youth in state custody.
1,500.
Over 1,500
Well, that's good.
to ensure accountability and required services are in place.
So you have anything in, boy, we're way off on juvenile court here, but I'm proud you're here, Judge. You come
you.
back. You'll come back, I
Yes,
hope.
absolutely.
What about these Are we doing anything through the courts for these deadbeat dads to help get them motivated to get out and work and find a job?
That's what these probation officers I got from the council last year are supposed to be doing.
Those volunteers, how many
They're
of
not
those?
volunteers. They're actually paid. There are
Oh,
three
okay.
probation officers.
Okay.
Federal grant pays for part of their salaries, and then Metro gave us the Metro match. And there's one assigned to each court, or going to be. They haven't been fully staffed yet, but they're going to be assigned to each of the three courts, so they can sit down with the family and saying, Dad, is this a matter of you having the ability to pay and just not, or you want to and you're having difficulties in any given area that we can help you with? So that's the purpose of those.
And they're doing a good job helping people find
That's
jobs
what we're
and-
hopeful for,
and
absolutely.
help people get up and go to work, because some people just don't have the skill. The biggest struggle I've run into, Judge, is the child that stops taking in new information at 3 years old and protecting themselves. Biggest struggle I've run into is they don't know how to build healthy relationships. They don't have good friends they can play with. They are belligerent in their relationship to other people. That's fueled by a dysfunctional parent who's belligerent, monkey see, monkey do type thing. You know, that's all I've ever seen, so that's the only way I know how to
And when
act.
you get your program up and running, which I'm so excited about,
This thing's going to
then
work. It's going to
hopefully
be a game changer.
it will. It will.
I really want to work close with you at the court.
It would be
because,
wonderful.
And I want some professional people. My folks are good. My folks are the Marines of what's going on in the city as far as rescuing children. They're out there on the streets. They're knocking on doors. They're visiting homes. They're building relationships. They are doing so much good.
Do you know how many face-to-face contacts would you think my probation staff has made in any given year's time with their probationers?
In a year time, with the people that they're working with, oh, I have no idea.
25,000.
25. See, that's the answer.
25,000
is-
face-to-face contacts. They're knocking on doors. They're going in with the Metro Police Department, who helps them with curfew checks, room sweeps when they're on probation and they want to do room searches. Metro Police accommodates us and works with us hand in hand. It's knocking on doors. That's what it's about, Lytle. And even
It's
youth.
getting to the family.
It is. And even youth that are released from state custody, say, and put on aftercare for a delinquent charge. We are working with Metro Police Department, Department of Children's Services. Historically, they'll go on aftercare, and DCS would just check in on them on occasion. Well, now we have the Metro Police Department, DCS, and Juvenile Court, and we've come up with this recidivism reduction program where they're knocking on doors, accountability, checking on these families. Is there anything y'all need?
And the thing is, so many of those parents, if you're a single parent and you're there by yourself and you got 3 or 4 children, that is a major task trying to keep up with those. Now,
It
if
is.
you've got a 14-year-old that's running with a bunch of rogues and they're telling him you don't have to take instruction, making fun of him when he listens to his mother, she needs help. And that police officer is a good source, and your court's a good source to say, son, you go that way, we're going this way,
Right.
and get his attention and let him know there is a better way. There is a better
And right now, we are in the process of totally revamping our entire juvenile court website from the bottom up. And we're going to have a list of resources that are available for parents to be able to tap into.
That'll be helpful.
Yes.
Because the people
And we've
my
had a
age,
list, but they're kind of outdated, so we're going through and redoing everything.
my age group don't have no sense to use computers to do that. We just lost in this world today. We're just about what would be considered in years gone by as illiterate. We couldn't read. But boy, these young people,
They do.
and what you do, you put a website up like that and you advertise that in the school, you're going to have children going to those websites looking and calling up and saying, I need help on this and this and this. Now, Judge, that's going to work.
And you know what else we're doing? We've got community court now. We're going to start in January.
Now, what is community court?
That's where we take the court to the schools.
To the schools.
To the schools. Mike O'Neill says, have gavel, will travel. That's his saying. We tried this once several years ago. It was successful, and for whatever reasons, it kind of fell off the radar. But we are starting it
Right,
back.
money. All
We're
right.
starting it back, and we're starting that in January. I think it's going to be from like 5 to 7 or 8 in several different of the clusters. We're working with Metro Public Schools to do that. They asked us to start it again, so we're going to do that.
That is great.
And we also have the youth courts in 3 schools this year. It was just Cane Ridge, and now we've added 2 more schools.
Now, what's a youth court?
That's where peers judge peers on some of these minor offenses, such
Now,
as
that
truancy.
works well, I would
It does.
guess.
So those kids are tough on each other. It's
They
good.
are.
It's good.
But they're
And
fair.
it's teaching them leadership
Oh,
responsibilities.
it's gonna, what it's gonna do is instill in some of my children. They're gonna say, I won't be a judge. You know, I want to help people. I talk to my kids about, and when I say my kids, I'm talking about the inner city ministry
Right, I
kids,
know
and
your
not
kids.
that bunch I raised, this other bunch. They'll say, I won't be a police officer. Why you won't be a police officer? I want to help people. I won't be a lawyer. Why you won't be a lawyer? I want to help people. My friend Ed Gross met Dr. Ira North, was a preacher at the Madison Church years and years ago, and Ed was thinking about going into ministry, and Ira told him, be a lawyer, and you'll see more people, you'll be able to help more people than you'll ever will as a minister.
It's
Because the ministry is
heartwarming.
going to be defined, but
That's why I love this job.
And you like that,
Great
and you want to be
community
judge,
service.
don't you?
I do. I want to stay being the judge.
You want to stay being a judge.
do.
You are the judge. I was a correction on my part. That's right.
I want to show them that they were right by putting me in this position.
And what if there's one thing, we ain't got but 2 minutes to go, if there's one thing you can snap your finger for, I've already asked you this question, if there's one thing you can snap your finger for, what would it be for Davidson County?
For families, at-risk families, to have available to them the necessary resources so that they're not at risk anymore. And one of the things that I've done is tried to reach out to the faith-based community and just the community as a whole to let everybody know who I am, what I stand for, and the fact that what my goal is for the at-risk families to not be at risk anymore so that these youth that are at risk won't be out there committing the crimes that they've been committing.
We're out
To
of
try
time.
to divert some of that.
We're out of time, Judge. You and I had lunch one day, and back the first time I met you, I think, and we talked about how that if we can get people out of the church building, out in the community where the people
That's it,
are,
yeah.
it make all the difference in the world in our city. Well, Judge, good luck on your run.
Thank you.
I've
I hope
enjoyed
the
working
people will
with you.
keep me.
And it'll be in the hands of the voters. But
Yes.
you will come back and be on
I
our show,
will,
won't you?
anytime. Thank you
And-
for all you do, Lytle.
Well, we're going to build this facility, Lord willing, and it's going to work close with the judges. It's going to work close with all the courts, but it's going to work close with Juvenile and you. And I think we're going to make a difference in our city.
I'm
I think
excited
it's going
for
to
it.
be a place where, when you say families will have a place to go to, they'll have a place to go
A
to.
bigger difference in the city.
Bigger. It's going to make a bigger difference.
Keep our city safe.
And it's going to take all of us being involved to keep our city safe.
And our
if-
kids safe.
And if we want to, if you want to get involved, just call out Juvenile Court or get on their website and let them know you'd like to be involved because it's our city. Thanks for tuning in. Judge, thank you.
Sometimes I hear feeling in touch with fear. Freedom we all hold dear now is at stake. Humble your hearts to God, save from the chastening rod. Seek the way pilgrims trod, Christians away. My Jesus is coming soon, morning or night or noon. Many will meet their doom. Trumpets will sound, and all of the dead shall rise. Righteous me in the skies. I'm going where no one dies, heavenward bound. What troubles will soon be, you're happy forevermore. When we meet on that shore, free from all care. Rising up in the skies, telling this world goodbye.